An outline drawing is done, which is available for download and with an elastic eraser, rolling it in longer shape and rolling over my outline. I do not scrub, no harsh movements, really gently roll over and remove excess amount of graphite of the painting, of the paper, and leaving only super light lines. And when you are transferring outline, don't push with graphite, because if you will push too hard, then these lines will be super visible even after many layers of watercolors. Be sure that everything is removed that is too much. After transferring, there's a lot of graphite, but we need only very light lines that will be enough to paint and to see where you need to paint. On the first day of our autumn painting, I will start from this corner, this maple leaf, mushroom, and maybe move on to this part. So this all part will be not painted, and I wanna definitely cover, so I can place my hand freely here, and I will cover with several layers. And also, as the paper is bigger than usual, extra protection will protect my paper and surrounding area of the composition, so it is neat and safe. I can easily place mixing palette. If you're not sure about that you can maybe spill more, add extra layer of paper towel or plain simple paper, and then you can freely paint. Protection is everything. Let's mix watercolors, and as I mentioned, I will start with maple leaf that is on the very left end, and there I see Sennelier red, so I'm taking Sennelier red together with lemon yellow, painting out on a piece of paper my mix. Then I see Indian yellow with a touch of Perlin maroon in some parts, painting out separately Sennelier red, and to get brown that I see there is Sennelier red, lemon yellow, and Perlin green. Perlin green, a little bit more of lemon yellow, and Sennelier red. More green, adjusting pigments, painting out. And I have quite a lot of this watercolor mix, so this will be also enough for some other areas, maybe a mushroom head, I will see. And then I will try to manage also a little mushroom that has a little bit of permanent rose with Sennelier red. I could take slightly smaller amount of pigment, and lemon yellow. And I need to dilute it with water to have a very pale amount. Now painting is protected, watercolors are prepared, and be sure to have clean water after mixing watercolors, because one glass is dirty and you can't apply first layers with such dirty water. And I have second glass which has clean water for first layers. Let's start painting. And this maple leaf, which is on the left, I will start with this inner part and then outer part, taking round synthetic brush, applying water just enough so watercolors can be moved and no puddles of water are there. Carefully around the part which is the other part of the maple leaf, and as you can see, there are no water puddles. And starting with watercolors, applying. This inner part is the darkest and most vibrant part of all this maple leaf. The other part, the back side of the leaf, is much lighter. And careful, especially with the leaf spikes. Try to paint them as light and thin as possible. Applying watercolors. First layer is super transparent. We don't need to get it as dark as it is in the reference because we are just starting and we will be applying layers, adding a little bit more, taking from mixing palette and applying watercolors transparently, pushing them with the tip of the brush. As you can see, I'm working only with the tip of the brush. And in the reference photo, we don't have enough information about this part because there's a little bit of grass in front. But I get as much information as it is possible, and little imagination will be placed to get this leaf look realistic and three-dimensional. So this is first part, and now we're going to the outer part of the leaf, and again applying water just enough so watercolors can be moved carefully. And this part is more of yellow, which we have Indian yellow together with perylene maroon. And I want to take also separately clean lemon yellow and apply lower part with lemon yellow. Carefully pushing watercolors, especially careful where the area is wet. And this part should be very light, transparent. We will add more layers and colors a little bit later. Just starting establishing main tonal values. And careful with the part where these two meet. Now surface is completely dry and I can put next layer. For that I'm using finer tip brush, which is smaller and more finer. And looking at reference photo, I'm adding some darker areas that I see in the reference photo compared to other dark areas. And I'm okay to paint uneven on a dry surface because this maple leaf have a lot of texture on top of it. So I'm using clean Sennelier red at this moment to give more vibrant layer to the area that looks the darkest. Here the outer part is more lighter. So right now I'm applying only here that is closer to this folded overlap. Adding more, and I'm adding still transparently, not too dark, just to build another layer, gradually building darkness, no need to rush. And as I'm applying this darker part, I'm making this tip of the folded area slightly finer, thinner. And as we are adding darker area, we already have changes in tonal values and making this part darker. What I also notice, and I'm taking separately lemon yellow to my mixing palette, is here more yellowish color. Autumn maple leaves have so many colors, and you can even just have reference as a guidance, but add your own touch to maple leaves. You will only make it more richer and interesting if you will add more color tones. And outer part, I want to add clean permanent rose. I see there more of this vibrant pink because this area is more exposed to light, meaning it is cooler, and in this case pink is a cooler pigment, but still leaving it transparently lighter. Taking a little bit of this Indian yellow and perlin maroon as some little more touches of very subtle browner color. And with uneven brush strokes, I'm creating texture of this maple leaf. Now the folded part has browner spots here. This corner is slightly darker, taking a little bit of this browner color. Also, surface is dry. And a little bit of this yellowish brown. Adjusting edges, making edges more straighter, more precise. Then I'm taking clean lemon yellow here. As I see in reference photo, this part is more of lemon yellow. And very warm lemon yellow with Sennelier red, transparent amount, to this part. And as we are building next layers, proceed slowly with transparent layers. This is the best way to build next layer. So you're moving forward slowly without any sudden changes in color tones, tonal values. It's better to go lighter, so in case you feel that you are slightly doing something wrong, you can adjust as you go. If you will go straight away with dark colors, then you will not have room for improvement or maybe adjusting some color tones, tonal values. That's what I'm going slowly building this sleeve, three-dimensional and realistic. And as I go, again, this part is dry already, and I see that I need to add more layers. There are also some curves and folds. Also here. Carefully and accurately with edges. And I haven't yet added any vein. Also, this part needs a little bit more. And my eyes are constantly going from my painting to reference photo. I gather information, everything that I need is there. And now, with the very tip of the brush, I'm adding a very fine line of the vein. And if you are not sure about your fine lines, take a piece of paper, any other piece of paper, and practice your fine lines before going here. Veins of the fallen autumn leaves are super crisp because this is the part where nutrition was going to the leaf and making it live, and now as the leaf is dead on the ground, these veins are also lifeless and crisp and dark. That's what we need to create. Even if you are not so sure and you don't see improvement after practice, better to leave without veins rather than painting thick veins. That is my suggestion. You can have leaves without veins. That's okay. Thick veins will look will not give a realistic result. And then we have more redder color here. I see a very fine vein here. And also first layer as you go with veins, better to have them lighter, and then when you are sure, you can add another line a little bit darker. A little bit more yellow color, and then there are spots of darker. Taking brown color, adding more dots. We see there's a lot of some kind of texture and spots on the sleeve, especially on the outer part. And then there's a stem, which is the darkest. Also very fine and crisp. Adding a little bit red. I see red also there. Also pay careful attention to the stem. It should be fine, thin, and crisp. Now I see that I need more color here, as this is the area which is in the shadow. Again, with uneven brush strokes, I'm adding watercolors and creating slightly darker area here. A little bit of browner. This part needs to go a little bit even darker. Using brown and this dark orangey color. Then brown with some spots, marks that we see there. And painting with the tip of my brush. There's a little bit of some darker spots on the edge, but not too much. Don't make edges dark. They are not. Just in some places, maybe a little tip. Also, vein can go now darker as I'm applying more darkness, and I see that my veins becoming too light. And this is when I can make them darker. And with watercolors, we can always go darker. That's not a problem. Problem is to make something lighter. And with each new detail, new brush stroke, we are making this sleeve more realistic. Not with first layer, not with one layer, but with patience and more layers to add. A little bit darkness here. And more here. This is where the shadow is. And also on this part. This is where the fold, not the fold, the curve appears. And with darker color, we are making it more rounder. Slowly adding next layer and next layer to get a realistic and rich result. It is about layering. Need more details with darker brown. There are some. And I want to add pink color on this part. Transparent amount. And more layers to the inner part of the leaf, building contrast for visual. Concentrating, very careful and accurate brush strokes. And adding a little bit more darkness to the stem, especially on a very fine line on the right side of the stem, because the right side is in the shadow. A little bit more here. And a little bit more here. And the more we look, the more details we start to notice, some changes in tonal values. So constantly look at the reference. All the guidance you need are there. Okay, I will leave this leaf for now. It already looks very detailed and realistic. Now I will move to this little mushroom here. And this mushroom has some grass on top of it. And now I will paint the whole mushroom head and stem. But later on I will go with darker green and over the mushroom. So I start with water. No puddles. And I have this permanent rose, Sennelier red and lemon yellow, small amount, really diluted amount, starting from the upper part, which is the darkest shadow part. Taking a little bit of red there as well. And cleaning my brush, pushing watercolors towards the lower part of the stem, of the mushroom head. A little bit darker on top. And this lower part is slightly darker because it lays against the ground and there's shadow. Pushing watercolors. And then we need a very pale gray color. I will free a little bit of space near this brown. And to get pale gray, I'm taking brown, small amount of brown, clean ultramarine blue, a little bit more. And I have gray color. Testing on a piece of paper, and it's not brown anymore, it's gray. And I will add even a little bit more. Now washing brush, applying moisture on the stem of the mushroom, taking this gray color and applying. It's very light, very transparent, and with grays, you better go light first. You don't want to add super dark layer. Then, as this stem is white and white area reflects everything that is around. So there, if you look carefully in the reference, you will notice that there are a little bit of pinks, and I think it reflects something from this sleeve. A little bit too much. So a little bit of pink. Then a little bit more of blue. White surface also reflects sky that is above this subject. I'm adding a little bit of more gray to the shadow. And then we have also this mushroom has in real life white inner part under the head, but as this white is in the shadow, it's also gray, so I'm coloring it gray. A little bit more to the shadow. I'm taking Pearl and Violet to my mix and adding more color on top, transparently, accurately, and slowly. We need to make this mushroom head more with volume. There's more on the lower part. And now, as I will proceed with this composition, we just painted this sleeve and now this mushroom, I will go further, and as I will have majority of composition done, then I will look at the whole picture and add something more, adjust, build more contrast. I will see what is required more to do. Now, until I don't have the whole composition, I will not be painting like completely finished, because when we have surrounding area, we are making some adjustments. Something is compared to other things darker or should be lighter, so better to have slightly unfinished and then do some adjustments. Some very pale fine lines to the mushroom stem. And a little bit more to the head. And careful with the gray. Don't overpaint it too dark. I waited a few moments for this mushroom stem part to get dry, and I will erase outline. It is too obvious, too intense. I will leave it for now as it is, and we can move forward. Now I would like to start with this big beautiful mushroom. I have brown watercolor mix from our beginning part, and I'm taking another palette. I want to add there ultramarine blue, manganese violet. What you can also get if you don't have manganese violet, you can mix light amount of ultramarine blue with pink. And I want to mix another brown, which is slightly different that we mixed. I will be using lemon yellow, alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue. This is different brown now. Then I want to mix another color using transparent yellow and little touch of ultramarine blue and little touch of alizarin crimson. A little bit more. And as I add very small amount. This is for the yellow that is on the edges. Then separately 𝗝𝗏𝗚 violet with a touch of ultramarine blue and little touch of transparent yellow. I see that the head of the mushroom have brown color, which is more violet. So I will have color from the first mix and all these colors. This mushroom is so rich in color. Hope you will have the beauty as we see it in reference. Starting with round synthetic brush and water. Applying only the head part, avoiding leaves. No puddles. See, no puddles. I will add very light amount of ultramarine blue to the light area of the head, indicating cool area of light. And then there's a little bit here. And manganese violet to the shadow part of the mushroom, which is here. There's this curve in the middle, which connects to the light area. And there's also here, where are leaves, and they're casting shadow on this mushroom head. This is a magnificent mushroom and it's so beautiful in real life. A little bit more. Now manganese violet represents warmth and ultramarine blue represents cool tones. Adding a little bit more. And this should be added transparently. And we are already separating where are lights and where are darks. But this should be done very transparently. Now I'm taking this 𝗝𝗚𝗚 violet, ultramarine blue and transparent yellow mix. And I will add it slightly with little brush strokes, transparently and lightly. We don't have a smooth surface on this mushroom. So I will also add like with the stippling. carefully, transparently. Don't want to rush this stage. Taking this lighter brown for the lower part, even more lighter and transparently. And adding colors as I go. The head of this mushroom is super rich. We have a little bit of this lighter brown on this side. Constantly checking with reference. Then we have this more yellowish down here. And then there's this yellowish down here, but it's completely in the shadow and it will be much darker. Then there's shadow here. Taking darker brown and adding there. Now with finer tip brush, I'm filling these circles that we have outlined, little holes. So I'm not losing them. And then there's a lot of these like little holes, and I will add them because we will layer more. This mushroom head needs a lot of layers to get to the beauty and intensity that we see in reference. Using tip of the brush, I'm placing now these little holes, some spots. And I'm constantly checking with reference. All information is there. More here. There's a lot of like spots and little holes, folds. Then there's also a white edge that should be left white. Then this hole around has darkness inside, but then there's light edge around and darkness then proceeds further. Slowly slowly building. And it's not even close to the result that we see in reference, but I trust the process that with layering and adding different brush strokes to achieve texture, I trust the process and I continue. And I always experience this moment of doubt. What am I doing? It's not even close to the reference, but I know it is always like that. But I trust the process and continue building layers. Adding here cast shadow from the leaf. And more here. This leaf is casting beautiful shadow on the surface of the mushroom. Taking a round synthetic brush, and I want to add this more violet layer. More smoother area is here, but the layer is super transparent. No fast approach with dark layers. Carefully building layers, no need to rush. Even this color, very bright orangey, I want to add somewhere, like on top. A little bit, but every new color that I add is transparent. Here on the lower part, I see it a little bit. And also a little bit here. Very light. Very light. And the more colors carefully we apply, the richer this hat looks. Taking brown, carefully, constantly checking with reference. What is there? What I need to add more? Which spot I need to intensify in order not to lose it? And we don't need to completely 100% do exact spots that we see, but we need to catch the feeling that is there in the reference in order to make this mushroom look as it is there. How these spots appear, how they look. There's some little uneven lines right beside the edge. And the layer underneath is dry. Then I see a little bit the edge darker because the lower part under the head here shows through a little bit of that. More of this color. And a little bit here as well. Then this yellow here by the edge. Taking this brown, adding more on the under head area. And I also see that a little bit here is visible. And then there's some textured lines on this part. Now taking round synthetic brush. And I want to add another layer here. Transparent. I'm not losing what is happening under. I'm just giving a transparent layer of color, building tonal values in the darkest parts. Details are still visible, but another layer is applied, and I see that I need a little bit more here, transparent. And I need a little bit here, but not to lose entirely this beautiful golden color underneath, and more here. Then under this leaf, then with finer tip brush, this area needs a little work. So there's this little, some kind of piece from mushroom sticking out, and the area behind it is dark and detailed. So that's what I'm going to add right now. Washing brush and smoothing this darkness, creating cast shadow area of that little spot. Then behind it, on the head, there's also shadow. Washing brush, cleaning in paper towel, and slightly smoothing edges so it's not so crisp. A little bit more intense. And now there's some details on top of it, like little lines. And uneven edges. There's some kind of separation of the edge. There's visible white edge, but some details from under the head visible. Also here, you see a very, very fine line, but it's slightly wiggly. Yeah, this is not an easy subject because of so many colors and textures. But if you go slowly, don't rush, don't try to make this mushroom look realistic straight away. The surface of those spots and different colors is achieved gradually, as you can see. Only now it starts to look more realistic and three-dimensional, only because I'm putting in effort and layers. bit of this yellow. I want to glaze this lower part and here as well. Then this little piece that is sticking out also has shadow as it curves under. And more to this part. Uneven brush strokes, creating texture and visual look of the mushroom. Taking lemon yellow here and very light in some areas. I want to add this more very light like sand color, especially here. And also here. More golden. Adding more brown where I see I need it more. And it's not smooth. It's not entirely smooth. The head of the mushroom is very textured and uneven. Because it is old, it is slowly dying, and then there's a lot of things are going on. There's some longer textured lines, like these holes. A little bit more here, definitely more here. Now I want to leave head to rest and paint stem. Stem is more, if we compare the upper part, is more cooler, and there are grays with browns, some blues. And I will also start with first water. In the light transparent blue. And shadow transparent manganese violet. Now careful with this hole. It is light. It is light on the right side, but shadow on the stem is also on the right. But with holes it's slightly different. And here shadow. Smoothing. Now shadow is also underneath the head. Very visible shadow. I'm adding manganese to the under part of the head. and down. We have a little bit more shadow because there is grass and ground and casting shadow on the mushroom. A little bit more under. So with this blue and violet, I already established tonal values. We have lights with blue, and with violet we have shadow part. Now the stem of this mushroom has a very interesting texture, and we will try to achieve it with brush strokes, not completely doing as it is there. I have here ultramarine blue. I will add Sennelier that I have it here. I have it a lot of here, I don't want to lose it. And I will add this yellow from the mushroom. A little bit more of ultramarine blue. And as you can see, it's very, very transparent, and we need to build that part of the stem transparently. It's almost dry. I'm adding little brush strokes with some gaps in between them. Starting from the shadow area that is underneath the hat. This part is way darker. It is way darker than the hat, but we are building that gradually. We don't wanna rush with darkness. Then these holes have beautiful shadow on the inner part and blending. You can even make it even more crisp, darker at the left side. And blending. Same with the one that is on the lower part, but it's not so dark as this one. A little bit darker. We have already visible holes, leaving a right side light, and continuing with textured brush strokes. Applying brush strokes, leaving little gaps of light in between. Taking a little bit from the watercolor mix of pearl and violet, ultramarine blue, and transparent yellow. Some spots, as you see, are darker, some are lighter, but we do have white space in between them. Not too wide, but not losing it completely. I will make that white area more narrower later on. Now I'm just adding to get an overall look. For this mushroom stem, which is really interesting. Carefully. Now this is the part that you can really work, add more effort and make it more, those white areas between these brush strokes, more narrow, finer. And the more effort you're going to put in, the more realistic this stem is going to look. And this is your choice. The area on the right is darker, so I will add more to this side. This is where the shadow is. Now this is concentration high level. To get the result we are looking for. And as it goes closer to the ground, it becomes way darker. But also we will later on overpaint some grass or maybe other parts that are there. So the stem will be like unfinished and goes into the ground part. Taking also a little bit of brown. And glazing over right under the head. Taking a little bit more and more. We need to get it darker because it is darker. Now there's also a little bit of browner spots, especially in the shadow. There's some darker folds. Some have darker lines. And the area right under the head is the darkest. So I definitely need to build darkness there more. More details, more darker details right under the head. This is where the darkest it is. And the lightest part is this part. Then on the lower part it is dark again. all this part is way darker. And some darknesses here. I think this hole goes even darker. We're building slowly this mushroom. Another layer right under the head to get it darker. Now I'm taking round synthetic brush. I want to do a glaze of this violet color on the right side. Transparent. It should be really transparent. We don't want to lose the texture that we already have there, but look, we made it slightly darker and it becomes more rounder. There's also a little bit darker right here at the bottom. And let's work a little bit more on these areas, making light part more smaller. That's a really super slow and accurate work, but it will pay off. If you put effort, careful observation, more to this side, making some really dark as I see it in a reference. Slightly more detailed spots under. Now it's a little bit blurred out because of the layers. I need to add more and make it even darker. Using brown color. And again, it is all achieved by layers of different brush strokes, textures, colors. We are getting the result we are looking for without any rush, without any too fast movements that can ruin the whole effort, the time that you spent. If you want to rush, Just take a break, come back relaxed, and continue. I'll make here a little bit even darker. There's a very crisp edge of this hole visible on the left side. And some more darker here. Also here. And again, carefully making area of light spots smaller and finer. And everything done transparently. Now we have visually the stem went under the head because I made it darker. Then we have now more visible this yellowish color. And as I applied stem, I see that my head needs a little bit more color. And that's what I can add. I also, as I compare with the stem right now, I see a little bit of red there. So I'm taking transparent amount of red and I will place it very lightly somewhere. Just like a little touch. Just a little touch, not everywhere. I see it here in the middle. A little bit here. And a little bit on top. And I want to add this brown here. Here. On top. Where the leaf is also casting shadow. Maybe make some folds darker. Some also holes more intense and visible. There's a little bit here. And now this golden, a little bit here, like a very light glaze. And also a little bit here. Not too much and not everywhere. A little bit here. Now this, I will take clean manganese violet. I want to glaze it here. And I also want to glaze it here. Now clean ultramarine blue, very light amount. I want to go over this lighter part. And this little here as well. Let's do a little bit more darkness underneath the hat on the stem. And now I notice there's a little bit of visible from the back, a little detail of darkness. That gives a nice touch. That gives a nice touch. This little darker edge gives a nice touch. And this part needs to go darker. Like this. Now I will do a violet, very transparent. We'll add a little bit more manganese violet glaze over the shadow area. On the lower part. A little bit here. I will leave it for now. I want to add second mushroom and then we'll see what to do with this more. But this is the end of day one and we did a lot of work. I didn't expect to do so much. This mushroom asked a lot of attention, concentration, but we will definitely come back to it and add more details when we will have more of the rest of the composition in. I just noticed that there are some more visible folds here. So we will add more as we will have the rest. Thank you and see you tomorrow.